the chat,
Yes.
in the chat, both Ben and I have identified that they can hear you and are interpreting,
Perfect.
but they can't be heard you.
And Oli is here's in Vietnamese. Wonderful. So we're successful. Great. And then actually, Tracy, I just saw that you joined. So we also have Spanish interpreter tonight, Tracy. Tracy, I think you're probably already in your channel, but if you don't mind introducing yourself. Perfect. All right. With that being said, we go to our next slide. So now that we have interpretation provided, let's get started. Welcome to the third community meeting for improvements to Town Field. My name is Nathan Frazee. I'm the project manager from Boston Parks and Recreation, overseeing this improvement project. Next. So a little bit of housekeeping, as you all have heard with the recording, that this meeting will be recorded. It's going to be posted on our project webpage, which has the link at the bottom, hopefully within the week. So please feel free to share with any neighbors, constituents, or stakeholders that want to join us this evening. Yeah, we have some Zoom tips here. So during the meeting, we asked for some engagement. So you can utilize the nonverbal prompts with the hands and thumbs up, thumbs down, things like that. We want to, during the question and answer portion, we're going to ask that you raise your hand, and then we'll call on you. And after that, we can give you the right to unmute yourself so you can ask your questions. And feel free to use the chat feature throughout the meeting. We'll do our best to answer any questions or participate in that to keep the meeting moving forward. Next. So tonight's agenda, we're going to do a brief introduction of the team. We're going to go over the project schedule and process. Then we're going to go over the project guiding principles that we established from the beginning. We're going to go over what we've heard to date, and then we're going to present a refined park vision. And within this, we're looking for feedback to make sure all of the input that you guys have been provided throughout the process has actually translated into the design. And then we're going to finish with a good long portion for discussion and making sure that those goals are being met. Next. So the project overview. So again, my name is Nathan Frazee. I'm the project manager in the Boston Parks and Recreation Department. We have a design consultant, agency, landscape, and planning. From that, we have Kate Took and Radhika Mann. Next. Our schedule and the full project overview. So we started late last summer in the fall, or last fall, and we started doing site analysis, understand what how the site's been used, past and present, getting community feedback on priorities and what the vision for the project might be. From that, we moved on to programming and ideation. So we started looking at putting concepts that would address a lot of the community needs and feedback. And we did a meeting and had input on that. So we're here tonight to make sure that all of that input you've been providing actually translated to the vision plan. From here on out, we're going to ensure that vision plan is met. We're going to then cost estimate that, make sure we have a good idea of what that cost and if there's phasing that's necessary for that. And then we're going to seek seek construction dollars for trying to implement that project. And then, so from this next phase, we might be on hold for a little bit. And basically, we're going to see as soon as construction dollars become available or the project is funded, then we can start some implementation. Next. So we have a few things that go into our park design. First is community input. That's why we're here. That's why we've been coming to you guys for the input. We also have City of Boston priorities that includes expanding walkable access to parks, addressing equity, climate resiliency, health, and community building, all of which are very critical for this park and how you all are using that, especially the climate resiliency where this is identified in an urban heat island. The Parks Department also has goals which include accessible and available to all, diverse, balanced, and efficient mix of uses, meaningful and inclusive community engagement, and adaptive and resilient landscapes that promote connections. And then one thing that is overlaid on all of those are safety and regulatory guidelines that we need to adhere to. Next. So Kate, am I turning it over to you for this slide? Or was this one mine? Sorry, I can't remember.
I think this one's yours, but I'm happy
great.
to take it.
Well, with that being said, we're, as the design team, we're here tonight to listen to you all. We want to empower your voices for this meeting and input. So we're looking forward to the information. Feel free to ask questions along the way and provide input. Like I said, we're here to listen to you all. So what we're hoping for is to make sure, we're getting and hearing the community values that you have for Townfield, that those values are shown in plan as well. So feel free to express your thoughts on what the design concept, if that's showing those values and in the needs, or if there's things that need improvement still. This is not a finalized plan by any means. We still are very much incorporating your feedback. Also share your excitement about the future of Townfield with others. So if, again, they weren't able to join tonight, they're still definitely, we're still open to hearing all voices. With that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Kate to go over the presentation.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Nate. So we're thrilled to be here in the third of 3 public meetings around Townfield. As Nate shared in terms of our project schedule, we were with you twice in the fall, the first time just to ask a lot of questions and listen, and the second time to share some different alternative futures for the park and to hear your feedback about what you really liked and what you saw that really needed more improvement. So we're here tonight to share one refined plan, as Nate said, that will be a little bit of a work in progress, and there's still opportunity for you all to provide some input and guidance around what you like and what needs a little bit additional refinement before we progress into the definitive design that Nate described. We want to start first by reflecting back at you what we know about the site, what we heard from you all, and how that landed in project guiding principles, and then what specifically we heard from you all at the last session. So I think as we shared a lot about in the first session with you all, we know that Townfield today is a really active and beloved space. It's mostly green space, about 54% sports lawn and 34% other green space and lawn. But it has really vibrant and active programming at the heart of that. So the baseball and softball fields we know are really well used and well loved. The new playground is an amenity that draws people from all over Dorchester. The plaza out in front of the ADSL building is well used. And the basketball courts are amenities that are just constantly in great demand. And then there are sort of spaces at the center of the park, which are, just more passive. There's a really wonderful and mature tree canopy at the park that's providing shade, particularly around the perimeter and in certain parts of the sort of heart of the park. And overall, this park is really doing a great job of providing a heat sink in Dorchester. This is a part of Dorchester that has historically been struggling with a lot of daytime heat in the summertime, as well as some stormwater challenges. And this park is part of the solution for that, really providing that shade and the canopy, as well as lots of places for stormwater to infiltrate into the soil. So we shared with you at the last meeting some big picture ideas about guiding principles, again, that we had heard from you all in that first meeting. you expressed really clearly that this is a park that needs to provide a diversity of active field recreation opportunities as a destination for all of Dorchester. And we had a lot of good conversation in the last meeting that will reflect back to you about what types of sports fields and courts best support the needs of the community here. We heard so loudly and clearly from you all in that first meeting that this is a place where the neighborhood already comes together to celebrate, to protest, to socialize, and that there are ways in which this park could better support those gathering functions. And then finally, we heard a lot about how important it was, this sense of arrival to the park, and how much people appreciate the renovated arrival sequence at the playground and in the plaza adjacent to ADSL, but how there are some issues with accessibility at some of the entries and a desire to enter more fluidly. So we want to share a little bit more about what we heard from you at the last session, and then land that in a refined concept.
Yeah, so thank you, Kate. When we last met with you, we had asked a question about what types of social activities and events the community would like to see at Town Field. So we had a really great discussion centered around it. We had proposed two ways of doing that. One was to build in seating along the hillside and the slopes, and to use that to view active or passive programming. So what we heard coming out of that discussion was that many people did prefer integrating seating into the hillsides and the slopes, and to really use that as a way to view different types of activity, whether it's recreation or community gathering spaces. And many participants also advocated for making the space a multi-use and accessible space that really integrates public art as well as nature within it. So we heard an interesting comment about someone wanting a nature area where one could read or meditate, and just the ability to have greenery be a part of the experience within this social hub. Mm-hmm. On the next slide, we had asked the question about what types of sports or recreation activities the community would like to see at Town Field. And again, we had presented two options. On the left side, you see, I don't want to say status quo, but maintaining the existing softball field at the northern corner of the site, as well as the baseball field with the multipurpose field along the south side of the site. So that was one option. The second option was trying to reimagine that if softball could be used along the same area as the baseball field, and really, if the baseball and multipurpose field became a lot more multi-use, then that proposal was wondering what other types of activities the community would like to see over there. And out of this discussion, really, the main thing that came out was that it was preferred to keep softball and baseball pretty separate, and it was important to have softball at this location and be dedicated as a part of this Town Field experience. On the next slide, we had also asked about how the community would like to arrive at the site. And we had again proposed two options. The first one was to create a loop path around the interior of Town Field that you could imagine it to be a walking or a jogging path. And along this journey, we would try to open up a few more entrances along the surrounding streets. The second option looked at really celebrating the historic entrances and really making those as your celebrated entries to the park. So I think we heard that a majority of the participants were excited about potentially having a new walking path that loops around the park, and strategically opening up a few more entrances which would also help bring accessible entries into the park.
So what we're bringing back to you tonight is a one refined park vision that tries to reflect the variety of perspectives we heard when we were last with you together in the fall, and gives you a sense of what that plan could look like. So we're going to walk through this in a little bit of detail and then show you a couple of views of what this could start to look like. So I think the first thing you'll see highlighted in the pink color is what Radhika was just speaking to, that there are a few changes to park entries. There's a loop walking path, which brings you all the way around the park and the fields to allow that sort of sense of recreation, movement, to provide, running and walking distances that would be comfortable, trackable, and part of sort of a healthy walking habit for neighborhood residents. There are a few new entrances added. So one here at Geneva Avenue, which is currently a historic entrance with stairs, would have an additional ADA entrance added to it. There would be a new entrance here at the intersection of Park Street and Dorchester Avenue to capture all of that traffic coming from the heart of Fields Corner and bring that directly into the park to eliminate the pressure on that very narrow sidewalk along Dorchester Ave and allow people to enter the park more fluidly. As well as a new entrance potentially further south along Dorchester Avenue and making a little bit more of the entrance on Burnside Street. You can see that we heard loud and clear that it was important to preserve the softball and think more from a programming standpoint about how you consistently activate that, that space with a wide variety of activities, which ADSL is already doing. And then just to add a little bit of diversity to the baseball field so that there's consistently striping and grading that allows a full service soccer field as well as the baseball diamond. The biggest changes to the park are really at the heart of the park, where a lot of the grade change is happening, and we want to take a few moments to unpack that with you all. I'll note that the existing ADSL building, the new plaza, and the playground, which was recently renovated, would remain in place and have been assumed to be existing conditions that the plan respects. So the bigger changes are in reorienting basketball. The goal here is to provide that sense of sort of using the grade as a natural set of sort of amphitheater, so slope side seating that allows you to be a great observer of games and tournaments played on at least the lower basketball field or basketball court. To provide a great sense of entry rather than entering right into basketball. You have a little bit of a buffer there. And then also to provide additional sort of seating on the slope and a community sort of event venue in the space right adjacent to ADSL. And this is really capitalizing on the events and programming that we know are already hosted here in the park and giving them a home that's a little bit more deliberate and accessible. So we want to share just two sort of visions of what this could start to look like. So this is an image that's showing what happens if you cut through the two basketball courts to give you a sense of the relationship of those spaces. So here you can see that entry plaza off of Geneva Avenue, the accessible route, which is getting you up to that if you are unable to use the historic entrance with the stairs. That first basketball court, which is high up, separated from the activities on the baseball and soccer field by a sort of grassy planted area that allows sort of informal seating looking at baseball and also seat walls that face this upper basketball area. And then you can see the way the grade is gathered between the two courts to allow for both an accessible ramp, which brings people between both levels and provides a number of seat walls where we could integrate trees into that to provide shading and the ability to look down at this lower court. You can see we're suggesting that the courts have ample runoff space around them, but are not fully fenced. The goal is to give them some fence protection around the ends of the courts to eliminate stray balls where people might be walking, but otherwise to allow a little bit more openness to those courts. and sort of more fluidity in the connection to the park. Although this is shown as steps, really it's just soft green space that's planted, and same with over here. We want to just share back a few examples that you might be familiar with of parks around Boston where this kind of landscape exists. So at the Garvey Playground, there are a number of different seat walls that face sports, as well as Mary Hannon Park in Roxbury. And you can also see the way that loop path could start to feel with paint markings and other mile markings that start to give you a sense of the distance that it takes to walk around the space and to be healthy.
So this view sort of looks the other way and through the community gathering space. So what you can see is built into the slope that exists between the ADSL and the softball. We have seating for a community gathering area that overlooks a small space that can be used to set up events or public art. It's surrounded by a green buffer from the ADSL, again, to mediate some of the grade change, but we really see this as being planted really thoughtfully and starting to create a space that addresses some of what we've heard from the community so far. On the right side of the image is showing sort of the existing conditions. So it's the existing playground and plaza that's in front of ADSL, which Kate noted we will be sort of preserving as an existing condition. But you can start to see how the community gathering space really starts to define the heart. On the next slide, we again have a few precedent images of the parks showing similar ideas, but really trying to convey that it is an active and connected community park, and really trying to bring people into the heart of Townfield. Again, we sort of look back at local examples for how to create or how to bring public art into the community gathering spaces. And we were really inspired by some of the local examples from East Boston, the mural by Fran Boo, and other local examples within Boston.
Yeah, so we've just shared a vision for the refined plan for Townfield. We recognize that it's a fair amount to digest. So we want to start just by giving everyone on the line an opportunity to use the chat function to share a little bit about how you feel about what you just saw. Tell us, if you can, who you visit with. And where you might go first in this new vision that you just saw. It's just really some refinements and tweaks, especially to that heart of the park. And what you're most excited to do, how you might feel, and anything that you might be wishing or wondering. So I'm going to leave this up for a few minutes, and feel free to answer at least one of these sentences or all of them if you have the ability to do that. And we will start to read some of them aloud. Just to start to get a sort of temperature check, and then we'll open it up to a larger discussion, which Nate will facilitate. So I'm going to open my chat and just see if there's anyone wanting to share any Mad Libs with us. Ann Walsh says she loves the idea of opening up the basketball courts. So thank you, Ann, for expressing that support for just minimizing the amount of fencing and allowing them to be a little bit more fluidly connected with other amenities in the park. And Candace is expressing support for keeping the softball field. Thank you, Candace. We did hear you loud and clear on that. I'm going to give you just a moment more. I suspect some people are typing furiously and others might be eating dinner and not paying attention to the prompt to share a Mad Lib, and that's okay. We'll give you just a moment more with this up, and we can also come back to it later on. Feel free to take a screenshot so you can keep working on your Mad Lib in the background while Nate is facilitating a discussion. I'll give you just a few more moments. Excellent. Thank you, Ricky. You'd like to go to the casual and leisure seating areas. I appreciate that. Yeah. Excited to have good conversations, to connect socially. Would love to hear more about that in the discussion about which spaces feel really great, and what additional amenities you'd like. Jamie says she loves what she's seeing. Glad about softball. Thank you, Jamie. Excellent. Thank you, Anne. Yep. Anne is coaching softball. Great to hear that. Excellent. So that softball and field, it may have been a little hard to see, but the softball field has been shifted over just a little bit to allow for that, that pathway that goes around it, which also provides a little bit of informal seating on a grassy slope adjacent to that loop pathway. Thank you for sharing that. And I really appreciate that you're proud of Dorchester, for joining together. Thank you for that. Valerie's excited about the soccer field. Tran, thank you for your comments. Excited about the gathering spaces and art and culture. Thank you. Nate, I'm gonna move us along and open it up to the more open discussion, but really quickly before we do that, we did want to share a little bit about phasing. So I think Nate shared that there's a bit of a pause at this point. Once we make any final tweaks that we hear from you today, there's a pause while the city secures a full budget for the plan. And we want to be clear that likely this plan gets built out in 2 phases. So, and there's exciting amenities and updates and additions at each phase. So phase 1 would likely include the improvements we shared at sort of the heart of the park. So the relocating of the basketball and reconfiguring of that in order to provide great seating between them and a better entry sequence along Geneva, as well as the community gathering space and the attention to opportunities for performance and different kinds of events more adjacent to ADSL. Both of those could be included in a phase 1, whereas phase 2 may include the loop walking path, some of the additional entries and renovations to entries, including the entry at Dorchester Ave and Park Street, which is enabled by shifting softball over just a little bit, and similar sort of adjustments to grading that allow this path to come in around the baseball field. So as Nate said, we're here in this place where we're listening to any feedback and comments that you have about this refined vision before the city takes a bit of a pause to request the budget necessary to build that phase 1 and to then move the design team into the detailed phase where there will be more opportunities to engage before construction. So Nate, I'm going to turn it over to you and I'll keep reading what's in the chat. I just saw so many folks add comments to the chat. So Nate, we can probably start there by just reflecting some of those back and also open it up to other folks who'd like to have the mic. Nate, over to you.
Great. Thanks, Kate and Radhika. Yeah, there's a lot more coming into chat that I'm going to do this slide but we're going to sure we're acknowledging a lot of the great info we're receiving. So now that we're going to be opening up for questions, I just want to go through kind of our standard slide, actually back 1 slide. So I just want to make sure for people to be respectful and mindful of each other's time when asking and providing comments. So what we ask is that each person, raise your hand, wait for you to be called on, and we'll allow you to unmute yourself. Please start with 1 comment or question at a time, and then as we'll get through that, feel free to ask a second one. But we want to give enough time for all of our neighbors and everything to provide feedback. I also want to acknowledge Councillor Fitzgerald's office representation with Julie Ryan here this evening. So if there's any questions, concerns with your new city councillor or redistrict councillor, I guess, for the park, she's a great contact for that, and she's here for attendance. So with that, I'm gonna go through some of the things that we just noted. So there's been a lot of comments about the gathering space, preserving that or even expanding that. Obviously, we have a very tight space, so we're trying to provide as much as we can within the the confined space that we have, there was a note about the sledding at the southern portion of the site. You know, we're showing a pathway, potential pathway that goes through that, but we can definitely do that in a way that still preserves the opportunity for sledding. And sorry, I'm just making sure. One other comment that came up was community garden space. We did not physically show any community garden space in that. We are still continuing to have conversations with the aid about, you know, the expansion of temporary garden space, but also what exactly that program will look like going forward. So even though it was not shown here, what I want to be very clear is that that conversation is continuing, and none of our design is done in a way that restricts or eliminates that as a possibility in the future. So we just have to continue to iron out those details. So just want to acknowledge that. If you didn't see that, we did hear that, and we're acknowledging. So with that being said, if you want to make a comment, question, please feel free to raise your hand. Am I seeing any hands?
There is a question in the chat.
Oh, okay.
It says from Candace, can you address the issue of the poor drainage behind the softball field?
Certainly.
Yes, Candace, I think that can absolutely be addressed in the plan. At this conceptual level, we know we can solve it. We just haven't drawn those details yet. But you might have noticed in the plan that the vehicular access to that lower level of the field house is preserved because we know you need that for service. But would probably be repaved and could potentially be elevated, or there could be additional stormwater amenities and drainage placed as part of that renovation. Certainly something that can and will be addressed as part of that first phase that includes the amenities around the ADSL. Thanks for asking. We know it's wet. We've seen it too.
Right. Comment just about the excited about a walking path around the outside. Shown, we did show a large walking path that circles the entire park. So that is something that we will be looking at trying to address and include. Again, that's probably most likely in a second phase, a later phase. That doesn't mean that at least the connections within that first phase will still probably be put in there. Just making sure that we're not digging up something that is freshly constructed, but we do anticipate trying to give circulation and at least passive exercise recreation throughout the site. Valerie, I think I saw your hand up first.
Hi, I was wondering if you guys were considering a futsal court itself and how the goals for the soccer field would work. Like, is it available for everyone, or do you need a key to be able to access it?
Kate, do you want to answer kind of some of the constraints we see with the futsal?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for the question. At the last meeting, we did raise the question of futsal and sort of offered some ways that it could fit in. The way to do that really is to compromise one of the other additional programs. So it's a trade-off between basketball and futsal, or softball and futsal. And I think we heard pretty clearly that both of those programs were really important. So it's not to say it's off the table, but it would need some advocacy, I think, from many voices to be included in the final plan. Nate, is that fair?
Yeah. Again, it's a balance of a lot of desires and a somewhat restrictive site. We have two very large programs between the softball and the baseball, so we have that kind of that internal spine, and just trying to see what we can. What active overlays can we do that still allow for a diverse use of the space?
Nate, Valerie had asked another question. It was about the operations. Can you answer that one about soccer goals?
I can, and I will say I don't know. How about that for an answer? So we've done in the past the smaller goals that are movable on site. We've also done some of the collapsible ones that are locked, and typically a coach or a league has the keys for those. So I think one of the things of that is, we can explore that and see what is the most viable option when we get closer to that. But I would anticipate there could be some ability to allow the public to use those. One of the things we oftentimes do is with shifting of seasons, we try not to have baseball and soccer active at the same time. So the other component of that is that we could move those, have those set and play during the designated soccer season. And then when that's over, it then transitions to baseball. That way you're not getting two user groups that sometimes has conflicts come up. Good point. I'm going to do Ollie, and then I'm going to answer some of the questions after that have come up in the chat. So Ollie.
Thanks, Nathan. My name is Ollie. I work for VietAid. First of all, I just want to say that I'm a little bit embarrassed that I don't know what a softball field is for. I can't distinguish between any of the sports. So apologize if I'm upsetting anybody, but I just want to say that I really like that core seating area. I would love to have lunch there, on a warm day. And I do want to second on what Tran was saying, artist Tran was saying, that perhaps there should be more seating area as well. As part of VietAid, we have the senior program here. And I would love to see, more seniors just hanging out and having more seating areas. So just, I guess it's more of a comment than a question. Yep.
Thanks, Ollie. That's a really great point. There are two plazas that flank that sort of larger area in between the courts and the seating walls. And we recognize that seniors don't always want to sit on seat walls, but the two plazas could be furnished with more age-friendly furnishings, which are pretty well established in the city of Boston. And those are amenities that could be brought here. Thank you for that.
And again, along the walking path, I do anticipate we would be putting, opportunities for seating and benches. It's just at this scale, a graphic of that would be a little bit hard to read. So we do anticipate incorporating, benches and other seating options.
So, sorry, could you repeat that? You were cut out for a second.
Sorry, I do anticipate incorporating benches and other seating opportunities throughout the entire pathway on the site.
Yeah, I guess to respond to both of you, I was thinking more of like a space where, like in Chinatown, for example, where they have, like spaces to play chess and things like that, like places where folks could congregate and chat, or neighborhood organizations could, have some sort of outdoor activity as well. So yeah, I think one of the designers showed like a plan in the beginning. There are like two plans. The one on the right, I think it was showing like a loopy path. I apologize, I was not a part of the earlier process, but that to me seemed quite interesting as well, in terms of, creating more paths for people to stroll and stuff like that. So I do want to kind of I guess, like share my interest in that kind of multi-purpose space also.
Thank you, Ellie.
Yeah, one thing I've been doing when we do cafe tables, a lot of times we put perforation on that to prevent water and pooling on that. One of the things I've started working with our design consultants is sourcing ones that perforation actually is a chessboard. So it allows that opportunity. But yeah, I think we can definitely look at incorporating and make sure we're doing that. So I'm just going to catch up on some of the comments and everything that we have been seeing in the chat here. I just have to make sure where exactly. So the bleachers, no, we do not show anything near the scale of the bleachers that are existing there. There is some embankment opportunities for a little bit more passive seating around that. And a lot of that is because those bleachers right now in their current location really block the spine. So you can't have, you know, with what we're looking for, trying to create for community space, as soon as you have bleachers anywhere in that scale, it really divides the entire space and takes up a lot of real estate. And for the most part, it's directed only at baseball. So it's difficult to create that in a way that could serve other uses. And there have been some comments about expanding the space for community gathering and events. So one of the things we anticipate is, you know, with the way the seat wall is done on the basketball courts, that is an overflow. So any of the larger events and programming can carry over on that, and then you have built-in kind of amphitheater seating for concerts, events like that there as well. So the goal is to try and make that as diverse as possible, so it can fit large events as well as a little bit more small, you know, intimate community. So some of the the question about timeline from Jamie. Right now, we do not have construction funding, so I can't give you a definitive timeline. We're going to be seeking that construction funding, but until that becomes available, I can't really give any answers on. So going down here, I see a reference to an article about the construction of the BCYF Center on this site. That is absolutely not going to happen. They were doing a feasibility study on that and looking at sites that could potentially host that as a protected park space. It's the logistics that would have to go through, and acknowledging the strong desire from the community and how important Townfield is. I can tell you the city will not be pursuing that as a location for that. But thank you for bringing them. Note that successfully maintain the recreational components while waiving new passive components. Just continuing on from Anne. Oh, thank you, Anne, for going over the difference of baseball and softball, which are very similar sports. Softball uses a larger ball. The fields are usually a little bit are shorter because the ball doesn't travel as far. It's traditionally it is like a female equivalent to baseball, but it is definitely there's co-ed leagues, all sorts of different leagues that play softball. And Anne said all of that too. Beautifully said. Thank you, Anne. So getting down, Trung, was there anything that you wanted? I know you had talked about. Are you still here, or did you have? I see. So I don't. Sorry, I'm seeing if she's still on here.
I'm still here.
Oh, perfect. Do you want to speak to your comment? Just, you know, so it's.
Oh, my comments around just more kind of public art.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
and the memorial too, please.
Got it. Thank you, Nathan and everyone. Yeah, I really appreciate the design, especially incorporating community spaces, greenery, and it's both temporary art and also permanent ones too. I'm hoping and that it's not only in designated area in the middle, but really I would say, you know, strongly encourage really throughout the park too, in different spaces. One of the things I'm working on right now is a project titled 1975, a Vietnamese Diaspora Memorial, and we're building a community engagement process to inform the design of the memorial, and really thinking about space that will make the most sense. And right now, Townfield Park is really the ideal space in terms of community gathering, just really accessible site. And so that's something that I'm working on at the moment, and would love to continue to connect more with you, Nathan, and the team, and really to see how that can be kind of incorporated, and, you know, just thinking about kind of for the long term too. But that's something that's up the radar, and just excited to have the opportunity to be in touch and contact about that.
Absolutely. I think in terms of art, public art, it can mean an absolute wide range of things, right? It's not just a statue, it's not just a mural. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to be creative in how that's incorporated into the site. I think we do leave open the possibility of all sorts of different, both temporary installations and the opportunity for something more permanent. that, can serve those purposes. For everybody else's knowledge, that all of that goes through the Arts Commission, both with securing artists, procurement for that, and then the installation of that. We've been in coordination with them, so they're well aware of this process as well. And we definitely are seeing how that can be incorporated and engaged in this process as well.
Great. If I can add one last thing, I know one of the things that we mentioned in the previous meeting was around, say, lighting. And that's one of the things that I'm thinking like in the future of, Townfield Park, thinking around kind of sustainable energy, incorporating solar, especially lighting, both the kind of at nighttime and just kind of the wayfaring kind of parkway for elders, for people on different kind of abilities too. But that's something that's definitely, on a lot of people's radar in terms of kind of the green future. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, great points. One of the things we've been doing for lighting for both courts, and we're currently investigating it with ball fields as well, is push button activators. So if a constituent comes to the park and they want to play basketball in the evening hours, depending on our parks, it's either permitted, so it's turned on. If it's raining and you don't show up, it still goes on. If for whatever reason, it's not on, or if you didn't get a permit, it doesn't go on. So if you're a kid and you didn't know you needed to get a permit, you don't have the capability of doing that, you wouldn't be able to play in the evenings. So what we've been doing is doing push button activators. That the other component is that we leave those on all year long. And a good looking at the energy savings of that. So Ronan Park, which has 2 full courts and then the half courts, comparing that to Jefferson, which is a single court. Jefferson is on our traditional operating, whereas Ronan is on the new push button activator. And I think we used a quarter of the power at Ronan than we did at Jefferson. So that's a massive savings. It's also a much more equitable, user-friendly, and better for the community. So it's not solar, but it's another energy, more creative way. We are exploring with the sports lighting for the ball fields to see if that's something that could be incorporated in that as well. So that ball field, which are much larger obviously for energy consumption, seeing if we can incorporate that as well. So yeah, and Ann and Jamie both made similar comments to that about lighting security and visibility there. So certainly want to make sure, especially understand that spine can sometimes be a bisecting through the park. We want to make sure any evening hours or dusk, that people feel safe to traverse the park. Perfect. I was hoping you were going to add that link. So thank you, John, for adding the link. For if anybody is interested in the memorial project that she's working on, she just posted the link, so feel free to go to that and engage in that process as well. And that will be incorporated into our meeting notes too. So if you forget to copy that out or anything tonight, it'll be posted on the website as well. Okay. Looking for any more hands, comments. I think I'm up to date on the comments in the chat. If I missed yours, please call me out on it. Sorry, I don't want to miss anybody's comments. Anybody else? Anybody have a chance to finish their Mad Libs anymore? We got some Mad Libs filled out. You can do funny ones too, right? It can be like the traditional Mad Lib game.
You can always submit them to Nate via email too.
Yep, more than happy to. We'll incorporate. Maybe we'll give out a prize for the funniest one if we get some good funny ones in there. Any other comments, questions, thoughts? We feel like the vision plan here incorporates. Obviously, we've gotten a lot of good feedback tonight, so we can certainly continue to evolve this and make sure we're expanding on those opportunities that were brought up. All right. Make sure I'm gonna pull up the participation and make sure I don't see any hands. I don't. All right. Well, with that being said, if for whatever reason you did not speak tonight, my contact is going to be posted in the comment section. I will also post the project webpage. So if you can go to that, which will also have my contact information. Give me 1 second, I'll copy that. So as I said before, feel free to share. Feel free to share the link. Feel free to share my email. Tonight's recording will be posted on the project page, and we will keep you all informed as funding becomes available, and if any other program or opportunities or art opportunities come up in the meantime. Oh, Alita, do you have a comment?
No, sorry, I was coughing and I hit it by accident.
I'm sorry. No problem now. Okay, well, with that, I think we've had a great night. I appreciate you all taking the time to be with us tonight and provide your feedback. It's been very, very helpful and informative to the design team. All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.